Hello again, fellow friends, and welcome back to this, me talking about a game that isn't out yet, but it's coming out. I'm sure you've all seen and heard and known and read and watched and taken in all the information about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remaster coming soon. This year, September, I believe they said. I always have to think about the name of it because in America it was always known as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, so people always abbreviate it to THPS. But in the UK, it was Tony Hawk's Skateboarding. And I think the second one was also called Tony Hawk's Skateboarding, and then after that, over here, they changed the name to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. So I always called it Tony Hawk's Skateboarding, and my god, this video is going to be like everyone else's video, where they talk about how much the game was influencing in their childhood and all that business. I'm not going to lie and say that it made me pick up a skateboard and start doing some skateboarding. I did have a little skateboard when I was a little kid. I had a skateboard. It was like one of those ones with only one end had the ramp bit. You know, it wasn't a trick skateboard. It was just a skateboard for skating around on as a little kid. But when Tony Hawk Skateboarding came out, or at least the demo came out on the PS1, the next day, everyone at school, that's a bit of an exaggeration, some people at school, surprisingly large amount actually, were all talking about it. Saying like, oh, did you play the new demo of that skateboarding game? Oh man, it's awesome, it's great. And I was one of them, definitely. I can envision the level, but I don't know what it was called. But I remember, you know, you're going around and you're skating and you're doing all your tricks and stuff, and of course you crash a lot when you start. And I remember the moment I realized you could, if you got enough height, you could go up and skate on the rafters up in the ceiling. And I was like, whoa, this game, you can do so much. And I know, of course, today that seems a bit silly to have been excited about such a thing. But this was like, what, 98, 99, something like that? So we had, like, this was a pre-PS2 era. So games were, you know, pretty basic back then. We were excited about things like faces moving in games back then, and characters where they could move their fingers apart. That was a big deal when that started to happen, because for years they were just like this. It's like, look at Resident Evil 2, you know, the original. They had kind of a face. It was more of like a pixelated mess. Not quite the Metal Gear Solid 1 level of pixelation, but it was still fairly pixelated. And instead of their faces moving and being animated, their heads would just bob in time with their talking, and the shadow was just like a circle on the floor beneath them, and their hands were like this. You know, that's all basic stuff. So small things that seem taken for granted these days, you know, like characters being able to do this, you'd be like, of course characters can do that, but back in the day they couldn't. So small things like being able to just reach secret areas in a skateboarding game was just like, I don't know, there was something almost magical about that demo, and everyone that played it was like, this is fucking awesome. Okay. Maybe not everyone, you know, I'm sure there are people that played it and went, whatever, but a lot of people, obviously, and then it grew in popularity. Tony Hawk's grew into a giant franchise. I played the first one a lot, the second one a lot, the third one a lot. Don't think I played any after that. I went around a friend's house and he had Tony Hawk's American Wasteland or American Underground, something like that. And I played that, and you could hang onto the backs of cars and stuff. And I was like, okay. I was kind of over the franchise by then. But the first three games were my jam. I remember going into skate park heaven as Spider-Man in Tony Hawk's 2, because that was a thing. I think Tony Hawk's 2 was the one that added the gaps, they call them, where there would basically be like a list of almost challenges on every level, and you've got to find all the gaps, you know. This was before trophies and achievements on PlayStation. This was just like, this is just something I want to do, just to get more out of the game, you know, because there's only so many times you can go onto a level and then get as high a score as you can within the time limit. They started adding these other objectives on top of the objectives that are already there, like find all the skate letters and find all the hidden, you know, tapes and stuff. I'm sure they'll be upgraded to, well, I was going to say upgraded to DVDs or Blu-rays, but I'm sure they did that in the later games, so they'll probably upgrade them to like a picture of the internet or something these days, because, you know, who buys tapes anymore? But yeah, I love Tony Hawk's 1. I love Tony Hawk's 2. My guy was, I can't remember his name, the guy that used to do the Christ Air. That was the special, because I seem to recall that special being very easy to do. I think it was left, right, circle. And it was very easy to land, and it got you a lot of points. So I remember doing that. And yeah, I've got somewhat of a history with the Tony Hawk's games, and I'm definitely looking forward to this remaster. Not a remake. I've seen people calling it a remake. It's not a remake. A remake is something like Resident Evil 2 or 3 remake, where they remake the game from the ground up. They go, let's start from scratch. This is the basis of the game. We're going to make that, but modern day. Like Final Fantasy VII remake. That's not a remaster. That's a remake, rebuilt from the ground up. This game is just like the Crash Bandicoot remasters. It's the same game, but prettier graphics and some new bells and whistles. And that's all people want. That's all people have wanted for years. They brought out a new Tony Hawk's game, I don't know, like 5 years ago now, and it was basically garbage. No one liked it. And people have just been clamoring for remasters of the old games for so long. And I just got done watching the interview Jeff Keighley did with Tony Hawk and can't remember her name, Jen or something. She works for Vicarious Visions, which, as it happens, is the team that made the Crash Bandicoot remasters and the Spyro remasters. I never played the original Spyro, and I never played the remaster, but I hear that is as good a remaster as the Crash Bandicoot remasters were. And, of course, Crash Team Racing remaster as well. So I have high hopes. I have reasonable expectations set quite high that this is going to feel like the old Tony Hawk game, especially when they, Tony and Jenna, I think, the woman that works at Vicarious Visions, they were talking about how they wanted to nail the feel. You know, they didn't want to just make a new game. They wanted to give people the old games again, but just, you know, adapted for modern machines and taking things like analog sticks into account, because I don't think you could use those in the first game. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm excited for this. I found out that the park creator that was in, I think, Tony Hawk's 2, that is now back, and it's going to be better than ever. You can share your parks online. I don't recall if they said that you can just upload them online and anyone can play them, or if you can just share them to your friends. If you can just share them to your friends, that sucks, because I don't want to do that. Well, it's not that I don't want to do that. I want to be able to download other people's tracks that they've made, people I don't know, like Trials. If you ever played the Trials games on PlayStation or whatever, you know, Trials HD, Trials Evolution, Trials Fusion, and I'm sure they did another one, but I fell away from the franchise by then. That was awesome because you could make your own levels and then you download other people's levels, and some people are really, really creative and make some awesome stuff. So yeah, I would love to be able to download other people's levels. I hope you can. It sounds like the park creator has been much improved. Jenna said that you could modify individual pieces now. So, you know, if you want to make a ramp that stretches out into the sky, you can do that. If you want to take a rail and like bend it round and make it like a roller coaster, she said, you can do that. So that sounds awesome, because the park creator was great. One of my, in fact, it's coming back to me now. My main gripe about the park creator in the early games was the fact that they had a limit on how much you could put in there. So it always felt like you couldn't envision your dreams, you know, or rather realize your dreams. You can envision them, of course. You can realize them because you're like, oh, I want to build this and build that, and then you finish building this awesome little section, and it's like, oh, you've used up all of your space in the memory, and now you can't put any more items down, which I assume was just a limitation of the hardware, which isn't a problem now. So I'm expecting the park creator to be a big thing. They're bringing back couch co-op split screen, which a lot of people like. I don't really have anyone that I tend to play split screen games with anymore. Sometimes when friends come over, I do occasionally, but generally I'm okay with split screen not really being so much of a thing anymore. But I know a lot of people aren't. A lot of people want it back, and I'm happy to see that they know this. It seems like Vicarious Visions know what people want, and that's a good developer. You know, the publishers are usually the ones that mess things up when it comes to games. The developers usually just want to make a good game, and these developers seem to know what people want. They're like, we're bringing back the old game. It has to feel like the old game because that's what people want, and I'm like, yes. And they're like, we're bringing the old music back, and I'm like, yes, because the music is as much a part of the Tony Hawk's games as Tony Hawk is. You know, the music is iconic. Obviously, Superman from the first game, obviously the best track on that soundtrack. I don't recall any other track from it, but as soon as I'm playing the game, I'll be like, these tunes take me back. Because how old was I in 1999? I would have been 14. I would have been about 14, 15 when I was at the peak of my Tony Hawk game playing. So I was like probably the exact demographic that they were looking to capture. You know, someone who loves games who's about that age. And of course, now people who were about that age are now my age. So we get to live it again, because that's what we do in games these days. We relive old stuff, but it looks better. So they just keep selling us better and better nostalgia goggles, basically. And I'm okay with that, because Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 were great. So yeah, I'm not going to let this video drag on for too much longer. I've said my piece. Tony Hawk's 1 and 2. I'm buying it. I'll probably stream it. And, I haven't got anything else to say, so I'm going to say peace! Wait for it. Just got to scroll over, reach the button. There we go. Peace! And I'm going to be doing Christ Air Greases into... what's it called? Nose manual for days grease. Fucked that one up, didn't I?